Tokyo looks like a video game at night. In 1972, Stefano Mariartini was snorkeling off the coast of Monasteres near Rios and noticed a human hand sticking out of the sand. Thinking it was a corpse, he called the police. It was actually two statues of warriors from Rios, ancient Greek bronze statues of the 5th century BC. Christmas tree in Kyiv, Ukraine. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. 88-year-old French man evacuated an entire hospital because he had a World War I shell stuck in his nose. A satellite perspective image of La Plata, Argentina, one of the best planned city layouts in the world. Danish police have an online squad that plays Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, Fortnite, Minecraft, etc. with young people. This is to prevent fraud, hate speech, and grooming. All the officers stream live on Twitch. Edit, now with proof. This fireball meteor over Mount Fuji, Japan shone brighter than Venus while in the sky. 20-foot sculptures of the first 43 presidents decaying in a farmer's field. Wood under a microscope is breathtaking. In the 1970s, a capsule with radioactive cesium-137 was lost in the sand quarry. 10 years later, it ended up in the wall of an apartment building and killed several people before the source could be found. Several sections of the building had to be replaced to get rid of the radiation. The Mir Deer House in Moscow, Idaho has been blurred out by Google. Cargo use training at a public market in Papua's capital Jayapura, 2009. Weeks worth of provisions for one. From Tokyo government. This dog was born with an extra mini tail on his forehead. A cubic window during different times of the day. Purchasing power decrease in Venezuela for around a monthly minimum wage. 5 months ago, 1 week ago and yesterday, monthly minimum wage is currently 130 bolivares, or around $8 US. PC store abandoned for 20 years. Voting pattern at UN. New international economic order. Suitcases left from families sent to concentration camps. A family, a life. The InSight lander has taken its final picture from the surface of Mars, as power runs extremely low and contact with the NASA lander could be lost at any second. A Burger King located near the former Knees Party rally grounds in Nuremberg, Germany. Let our fate be a warning to you. Mausoleum at Majdanek, Poland. A giant dome covers a massive and containing a mountain of real human ash of approximately 78,000 cremated victims of the former Knees Delt camp. Christmas train of lights. The size difference between the Royal Navy's old, left, and new, right, aircraft carriers, taken in 2014. This thing's appeared in the sky in Mongolia today in different regions and places at the same time. Passenger trains in the United States compared to Europe. The greenhouses of Almeria, Spain, covering 26,000 hectares. The greenhouses reflect so much sunlight back into the atmosphere that they can be seen from space and are actually cooling the province. This otherworldly piece of petrified wood carved into a perfectly polished sphere. The tasseled wobbegang, also known as carpet shark, is well camouflaged and sits motionless on the seafloor waiting for unsuspecting prey. Without nearby rocks or logs, 30 sunbathing turtles chose to rest on this hippo instead. The beautiful and intricate decor of these trucks. 1929 Cadillac hearse. King Conrad III besieged Wiensberg in 1140, ordering all women to flee. The king told the women that they could flee with whatever they could take on their back. The women abandoned their belongings and instead carried their husbands. The king laughed at the sight, yet kept his word and spared the men. A fruit-piercing moth during its caterpillar stage, sometimes referred to as the cosmic caterpillar. This building that was designed to protect a 326-year-old tree. Christmas in the 1920s. With only low-resolution telescopes available, 1963 encyclopedia posits Mars has zones of vegetation. Mars, when studied by telescope, reportedly reveals canal-like lines that do not show up in photographs. The patches of color in this picture are believed to be zones of vegetation. The white area, one of the polar caps, is thought to be covered by a thin coating of ice. Changing of seasons. In Utah, this picture was taken at the right moment where the Sachin moon formed an eye. The shadow of K2, second highest mountain on Earth, is tall enough to extend all the way from the Himalayas to China for hundreds of miles. Archaeologists scanning the mounds in the Kızıltepe district of Mardin, a city in Turkey, found a toy car made of baked mud. As a result of the work done by archaeologists, it turned out that the toy car belongs to 7,500 years ago. A map of the Atlantic Ocean floor which was published in 1968. Lionel Messi suffered from childhood growth hormone deficiency, and no football club in Argentina wanted to pay for his treatment. After a meeting with his frustrated father, Football Club Barcelona executive Carlos Rexach decided to sign the 12-year-old immediately at a restaurant on a napkin. I folded this origami dung beetle from one uncut square of paper. Completely unprocessed image of our galaxy, shot from an altitude of 14,000 feet in the Himalayas. Temperature dropped 26 degrees in 3 minutes. Dillon, Montana. Photo I took of two sides of a road in Ontario, Canada, with both sides having completely different colors. This rare photo of a sperm whale, with a giant squid arm still attached to its head. Very high resolution photo of San Francisco after the 1906 earthquake showing the city in ruins. A picture I took of New York City in the fall. Have you ever seen a more festive fungus? This is the Wave, a sandstone rock formation located in Arizona. An absolute unit of onions weighing 4.65 kilograms and 4.7 kilograms respectively. View of a lineman working on telephone lines in Pratt, Kansas, 1911. In 1944, United States Army Air Force's pilot Bill Overstreet was dogfighting with a German fighter who flew underneath the Eiffel Tower to try and escape him. Bill followed him under the tower and shot him down, being awarded the Légion d'honneur over 50 years later, France's highest medal. This is the reconstructed skull of a Dunkleosteus, a large predatory fish with armored plating that lived roughly 380 to 360 million years ago. This is a photo of the surface of Comet 67P/Churyumov-Gerasimenko. It was taken by the Rosetta spacecraft on the 30th of September 16 as it descended to the comet's surface at the end of its mission. Pokemon series' very first poster in 1997 versus the very last poster of Ash Ketchum's Swan Song in 2023. Elephant who had an accident receives prosthetic leg. This Indian Scops owl's perfect tree trunk camouflage. The pattern and this ice I found outside my house. Since protests are going on in Iran for regime change, this is Iran before 1979 revolution. View of the sky of 9D Julio right now. The shell house in Polperro, Cornwall. Created by Samuel Puckey over 5 years from 1937. He was a retired sailor and used his collection of shells from around the world to decorate his 19th century cottage. The last of the prisoners leaving Alcatraz, 1963. Iran Mall in Tehran. Iran is the biggest shopping mall in the world. Size comparison of the world's smallest chameleon with human finger for scale. The homemade telescope that Clyde Tombaugh used to make detailed drawings of Jupiter and Mars. He built it in 1927. He was 20, and those drawings got him the job at Lowell Observatory in 1929, where Tombaugh would discover Pluto that next year. Eiffel Tower from below versus Eiffel Tower from above. This albino wood turtle was born with these stunning colors and patterns. When in contact with light, a Stygian owl's eyes reflect this bright red color. The EU has threatened Twitter owner Elon Musk with sanctions after several journalists covering the company had their accounts abruptly suspended. The tripod fish, also known as the tripod spiderfish, is a deep-sea benthic fish in the Hypnophidae family that lives in lower latitudes. It is now pretty well known thanks to photos and observations from submersibles. It can stand on 2 long fin rays in its tail and 2 pelvic fins. 99 million years old hell ants. This early 20th century photographic plate that I digitally restored to my work, all those past lives and stories. Cross sections of all 835 trees in a forest, recorded by laser scanning. The floating islands and homes made of reeds on Lake Titicaca, Peru. Every few days, a new layer of reeds are added, while the old layers sink to the bottom of the lake. Walls of this historic barn on my family's newly purchased farm date all the way back to 1930 with a note for each calf born. In 1998, the BTCC Renault Laguna race car had an onboard camera inside the left headlight assembly. This mannequin in an Ithaca, New York storefront window. Tsar Peter III of Russia court-martialed and hanged a rat which had chewed the heads off his toy soldiers. A type of marsupial, the bandicoot, has a ridiculously short gestation period. 2 species have a pregnancy lasting only 12.5 days. Houdini had a brother named Houdin who was also a magician and continued performing Houdini's acts after his death. The Ghost Army was a special unit during World War II comprised of actors, artists, illustrators, and sound engineers who used props and misinformation to confuse and scare the enemy. The hairy frog can break the bones in its fingers and toes and force them through its skin, forming claws. These are thought to be used in self-defense or to improve its grip. The claws of the sloth bear, Melursa circinus, are adapted to excavating ants and termites, so they are poor climbers. Being less able to flee predators, the sloth bear is considered one of the more dangerous bears. Air Force One is only called Air Force One if the US president is on board. The Chicago Cubs have the longest championship drought of any North American sports team. The last time they won the World Series was a month before the shootout that killed Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Japan and Russia still haven't signed a peace treaty to end World War II due to the Kuril Islands dispute. Violet Jessop worked as a stewardess/nurse aboard the Titanic and Britannic when they sank, as well as on the Olympic when it collided with another ship. She survived all 3 incidents. Lenin liked to ski in his custom Rolls-Royce when not erstwhile engaged with the revolution. Peregrine falcons were nearly eradicated from eastern North America by pesticide poisoning in the middle 20th century, but after significant efforts, they have made an incredible recovery. They are now regularly seen in many large cities. O.J. Simpson was originally considered for the role of the Terminator in the movie with the same name. James Cameron did not feel that Simpson would be believable as a killer and cast Schwarzenegger instead. A routine service visit for a Bugatti Veyron will cost the owner an average of $21,000. Fruit bats are exposed to alcohol naturally in fermented fruit. A study in 2010 in which tipsy/drunk bats navigated obstacle courses found that they are unaffected by ethanol. Migaloo is the only documented all-white adult humpback whale on Earth. Nostradamus wrote a cookbook which contained a recipe for love jam so powerful it would instantly persuade 2 people tasting it to have sex. Back in 1937, there was an exhibition boxing match where the fighters were attached to metal frameworks with fireworks in them and fought in the dark. For safety reasons, the boxers wore fireproof suits lined with asbestos. Despite Saudi Arabia being associated with desert, center pivot irrigation has converted large swaths of desert in agricultural land. Fred Laws won the 1904 Olympic marathon, but was disqualified for traveling 11 miles by car. Laws was banned for life, but he said he was sorry and the ban was lifted. The next year he won the Boston Marathon. Archer fish capture prey by shooting a stream of water out of their mouths at insects above them. Once knocked into the water, they are easily devoured. Originally, a third world country meant a country that was neutral during the Cold War. Rabbits can conceive a second litter before the first is born. Adolf Hitler's life was saved on 2 separate occasions. First, when he was saved by a priest while drowning. Second, when a British soldier didn't shoot him during World War I. Britain created the lie or myth that carrots are good for your eyesight in World War II. The tactic was used to fool with Germans. Some believed if you ate enough you could gain night vision. Night sight can mean life or death. Eat carrots and leafy green or yellow vegetables, rich in vitamin A, essential for night sight. We sent these Lego figurines to Jupiter. NASA estimates that the value of minerals in the asteroid belt exceeds $600 quintillion or nearly $100 billion per person alive. In 1923, jockey Frank Hayes won a race at Belmont Park in New York despite being dead. He was the first, and thus far the only jockey known to have won a race after death. In 1637, French mathematician Pierre de Fermat came up with a theorem, claimed to have proof for it, but never provided it. It became known as Fermat's last theorem, and it took us 358 years to prove it correct. It's illegal to pee in an elevator in Singapore, and that some elevators have a urine detection device which detects urine odors, sets off an alarm, and close the elevator doors until the police arrive. When doing the motion capture for Eyes of the Tomb Raider, Camilla Luddington's face was applied with mauve fluorescent paint to give game designers 7,000 points of reference. Dr. Donald Unjair cricked his knuckles every day for 60 years to see if it would cause arthritis. Captain Jonathan R. Davis was a prospector who took on a gang of violent criminals single-handedly and killed 11 of them. Sword-billed hummingbirds are the only birds with a bill longer than their body. The alligator snapping turtle actually has a weaker bite than many other turtle. In fact, its bite force relative to body size is comparable to that of a human. On April 16, 1912, aviation pioneer Harriet Quimby became the first woman to fly the English Channel. However, her feat garnered almost no press coverage because she did it less than a day after the Titanic sank. Oxford University is older than the Aztecs. Oxford founding was in 1249. Founding of Tenochtitlan was in 1325. Hugh Glass was an American frontiersman / badass part of an expedition known as Ashley's 100. During the trip, he was mauled by a bear and left to die. He survived and went on a 200-mile, 6-week trek to the nearest fort. Your tonsils can bounce higher than a rubber ball. Human tonsils can bounce higher than a rubber ball of similar weight and size, but only for the first 30 minutes after they've been removed. Tonsils. Heroin was used as a coughing remedy for children. Although filmed vampires are sometimes depicted as using hollow fangs to blood, vampire bats actually use their tongue to lap up the blood from a wound.